Hello, beautiful humans. How are you? And I know you can't respond to me in person, but in this moment, tune in with me for a second. Feel your heart, feel your breath, feel your essence, feel your body. What's alive for you right now? What emotions are running through you? Do you notice, if you scan your body, do you notice any places that are feeling like they're calling out for a little bit of extra love, tender care, softening? And let's just all take a really deep breath together. In a really fast-paced world, it's so important for us to just remember the simplicity of breath. Maybe this is the first time that you've brought awareness to your breath today, and that's okay. It's all okay. It's all unfolding. Life is just one big happening. Where are you in that happening? Are you the person that life is happening to? Or are you the happening itself? So just feeling your breath coming into this moment with me. We're just going to do a short, quick card pull, some collective energy to see what messages want to come through. And it's funny how sometimes when I see collective card pulls, I'm like, nah, I don't want that. I want something that's more specific. So I tend to gravitate towards tarot readings where you get to choose one of the 4 piles or whatever it might be. But something that I'm realizing is that when we pull an oracle card and we share that with a collective, it might seem like one archetypal energy that we're all working with in this moment. But that archetype or that energy is going to be perceived and dissected and interpreted and integrated through your personal experience that you're in this moment. So you listening to this are a completely unique and individual quantum field, right? You look like a human, I know, but you are a quantum field full of all of these different belief systems that you're playing with and stories that you're weaving. And you've shown up to this moment with me with that quantum field vibrating at a specific frequency, kind of like a grid or a web or a net. And so when I share this message is not just a collective broad message. It's also a specific message that comes through for you as an individual, unique expression of source. And whatever arises in you is exactly what is meant to arise for you as a unique individual. So often we get caught up in thinking, well, I could just stop there. We get caught up in thinking. We take a message like a card or whatever, and it inspires something in us, and then our mind goes, oh, but what if it meant this, or what if it meant that, or what if I'm not grasping the full thing? And that grasping and clinging energy is what blocks us from what is naturally just wanting to arise. So I bring that up because I want to invite you and encourage you into a specific space with me right now. As we pull up a card or two, what I want you to do is to just be in a space of allowance. And it's funny how the mind wants to figure out, how do I do that? How do I allow? But allowance is actually what we naturally are. And what causes clinging or resisting that allowing, what takes us away from that state or space of allowance, is just by clinging to thoughts that arise. Clinging to thoughts that are trying to figure it out, right? The mind is always trying to figure it out. I actually just wrote these little notes for myself all over my house, and one of them says on my mirror, there is nothing to figure out. There's just a happening. So what I encourage you to do is that as I pull this card, and I'm not going to go into too much detail with this today, I'm going to maybe expand a little bit, and then I'm going to just allow you to take this and weave your own experience and narrative with it. But what I encourage the most with this is that you allow that weaving to happen as an allowance, as something that's flowing through you, rather than something that you need to grasp and figure out with your mind. And this is how we tune into the body. This is how we tune into our, you could say, our multidimensional intuitive abilities, by allowing, not by thinking our way there intellectually or analytically the way we've been kind of programmed to do, but just through observing what comes up when I give you this message, what arises naturally. And even if that is nothing, know that that is perfect. It doesn't have to come through as a big, profound firework moment as I used to chase. Sometimes nothing comes up until later. Sometimes that the message that we receive is a gift, a seed, a key that is unlocked at a later time. Maybe when you're in meditation, when you're really connected and you're kind of out of your mind, and something comes up that's like, oh, this now connects to that card. This now connects to that message. And that's what we're all doing here. We're planting seeds. So I want you to just approach this with curiosity. Approach this with a more lighthearted feeling. Like, I don't need to do anything with this message. I'm just going to allow it to be a seed for me. And today's Mayan energy is, or the Trisana that we're in, with the next 13-day period, 13-day period, is all about the seed. The seeds that we plant, that we sow, all of the seeds that kind of come to fruition in the garden of abundance that is our life, that is always ebbing and flowing. So with that, what I'm going to do here is I am going to pull. Let's start with one and see where it goes. Maybe we'll do a couple more. So if you want to set an intention, feel free to do that as I shuffle, but also feel free to just allow to see what comes up. So just connecting right now. If you have any guides, any higher aspects, any ancestors, angels that you wish to call in, feel free to do so. Just feeling into your heart. Just connecting with this message before it arises, knowing that it is already perfect, is already exactly what is being called forth in this moment, just by you showing up here, knowing that nothing is for no reason. So you are here in this moment because your intuition brought you here. And trusting that. All right. First card that comes through is fertility. And this is so beautiful because it's right in alignment with the energy I was just talking about of this 13-day period of Anil that we're in the Mayan energies, which is all about that seed, specifically about abundance, fertility. So let me just tune in and see what wants to come through from this. And I would like to encourage you guys, while I tune into your own inner world and just allow. Just allow anything that wants to come up for you in terms of this card and the artwork, the word, the archetype. And I'll give you a moment. It's not always about somebody telling us what the message is, but about allowing space for our own messages to come through. Okay, so what's coming through for me is, first of all, fertility. We think about this a lot when we think of something like pregnancy, which is what this card depicts. But what I'm getting from this is that fertility is something that we are encouraged to see in other ways. This is an archetype that, everything in our reality is symbolic and is archetypal. So fertility is this energy that accompanies the pregnancy process. So when we are growing or birthing something, fertility is this energy of like a lot of potentiality, possibility. There's always infinite potentials open to us. So we're always in a space of fertility, but there's moments in life where we feel like fertility is more available to us, that we have more of an access point into tapping into our own fertility, of maybe something that we're wanting to birth into the world. And what I felt from this when I tuned into myself is that it's coming through as this message of like the heart chakra. And oftentimes, with this, we think of pregnancy in terms of the solar plexus and the sacral chakras of this lower center. But what I'm feeling right now for this message in this space specifically is fertility of the heart, and this feeling of expansion that we have available to us right now in our energy fields. And what I'm also getting is this connection between this and transparency. So I'm just going to go with this and we'll see how it weaves. When we are in a space of transparency with ourselves and with the world, we're in a space where we're not hiding from things. This already feels like it's a message for somebody listening. This is a time in our history where we're really being called to step forward in transparency with ourselves. That means that we are giving ourselves permission to not play so small, to not hide away so much. That a lot of our fertility, the things that want to be birthed through us, come from us stepping forward, come from us being more transparent with the world, come from us sharing our voice, our truth, our love. And a lot of times what I'm getting drawn to is like this heart chakra is like, a lot of times when we share with the world, we limit what we're sharing because we buy into narratives that say, okay, this is what I'm getting. We buy into narratives of fear that limit the full transparency of our message or the gift or the project that we're working on and sharing with the world. So in order to be the most fertile, in order to have the most access points to our own creativity, to what we're bringing forward for ourselves and for others, this requires this next level of transparency, meaning this requires our next level of being open to love. So the narratives, I'm being drawn to narratives of the mind that are happening naturally, that are functioning through us, right? All of these thoughts are just happening. We're not the one thinking them. It feels like we are, but these thoughts are just arising. And when we buy into the narrative of fear, oftentimes we limit our transparency because narratives come up like, oh, don't share that, that's not going to be accepted, or oh, don't be that expression of yourself because it's too much and people will judge you. So any of those narratives that we cling to or we believe or we buy into with our focus, so that thought comes up of like, don't share that, that's too much, or don't share that, that's weird or crazy. When we buy into that thought, which comes through as something like not posting something or not speaking on something out of fear, we are blocking our transparency and we're blocking the ability to show up in the full expression of love. And when we do that, we limit our potential to be as fertile as we can possibly be. Hold on, there's more that wants to come through for this. Okay, so let's use this archetype of pregnancy just to make this a little bit more tangible for us. When we think of pregnancy and fertility, we think of this egg or this seed, right? Especially in women, there's this cyclical nature of our body to be releasing and growing new seeds, new eggs that have the potentiality to come to life, to be nourished in our body, to be brought into fruition through the female body. And of course, it doesn't have to happen this way, but we're just going to use this example. So we have this potentiality always available to us. We have these seeds always available to us. And you could think of this as like when a man and a woman come together and the woman has that seed, inseminated, or I feel like I'm missing the right word, but you know what I mean. Mercury retrograde seems to be affecting my speech a bit lately. But when that seed gets fertilized by the man so that this pregnancy can kind of take on its next step, that is the equivalent of us as humans allowing for the fullness, the transparency, the not clinging so much to it needs to be this or it needs to be this way, but it's this allowance of the natural process that wants to happen. So when a woman allows a man to fertilize this egg, there is no internal resistance that blocks that if it's going to come to fruition in the female body. There's just this allowance. It's as if the woman's body is this transparent, just like in this picture, this transparent field that is allowing in the male sperm to impregnate her, so that this whole journey of fertility, this whole journey of growth and of birth can occur. So this is happening within each of us all the time. And what blocks us from being able to access the potentiality of our own innate ability, of the creative projects and flow that wants to move through us, is our mental space, is the blocking that we sometimes find ourselves in by attaching to these thoughts and clinging to them and saying, no, that's scary, I don't want to be transparent, I don't want to allow that thing to come through me because of X, Y, and Z. So when we can be transparent with ourselves, meaning we can be in a space of absolute allowance and love of what's flowing through us, and we can move with that impulse without blocking it, that is when we have access to infinite potentiality of the seeds that are being planted by the divine. So we're always being kind of impregnated with new seeds of inspiration and creativity from the divine, from the invisible realms, through our intuition. I just did a podcast on this about how that is the feminine energy, this impulse that we get from the divine. You feel it in terms of an inspiration or a motivation to create something. And then oftentimes we block that, the masculine action on that feminine impulse, because of the fear of our minds. And I highly recommend listening to that podcast that I just posted, because it's all about this. And so what we want to do is we want to open up this flow so that when we are inseminated by this seed from the divine, that we get to follow that impulse into action by not buying into the fearful thoughts in our mind. And that transparency, you could think of it as like transparency being this open channel, and this belief and this anchor in love of feeling that impulse, that intuition, and moving with it, trusting that it's there for a reason. So that is what I am getting for this card pull from today. And I encourage you to observe in this card what stands out to you. And take this and sit with it for a few moments, or meditate with it for a few moments. Because what comes through for me is not always the message that is needed for you. It might be something totally different that is inspired in your own internal web, right? Through your belief system, through the narratives you've been rehearsing. So take what resonates from this and then weave your own tapestry of what's arising through you as a message, as an impulse, right? There's a seed being planted right now, and now the question becomes, what are you going to do with that? What potentiality might that seed unlock for you? So I will leave it there so you can have your own journey with this. But thank you so much for being here for this collective and individual message. It is always, always both. I love you all, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.